The story opens with Layla, a curious 17-year-old girl living on the outskirts of a small town. She's always felt disconnected from those around her, feeling a pull toward the stars and the mysteries of the universe. One night, she ventures into the woods after hearing a strange humming sound. She stumbles upon a shimmering portal-like structure surrounded by glowing plants. Unnerved but curious, she approaches it, and in a moment of courage, she steps through, finding herself transported into a dimly lit chamber on an alien spacecraft. The spacecraft belongs to a species known as the Elith, tall, bioluminescent beings with soft, translucent skin and calming presence. Layla's fear is quickly replaced by awe as she notices that these beings are not threatening, but seem curious about her as well. Their form of communication is telepathic, which initially overwhelms her, but she soon finds their thoughts soothing and clear. Layla discovers that the Elith have been observing Earth for centuries, intrigued by human emotions, something they themselves lack but wish to understand. This sparks the beginning of her connection with them, as she becomes an ambassador of sorts, sharing human experiences while learning the intricacies of Elith culture. As weeks pass, Layla finds herself visiting the Elith ship regularly. Their telepathic communication grows clearer, and she begins to understand their language of thought and emotion, or rather, their lack of the latter. The Elith are a race that values knowledge, reason, and serenity, but they are perplexed by the chaos and depth of human emotions. Layla finds herself in the role of teacher, explaining what fear, love, sadness, and joy feel like. During one visit, Layla meets Kyrix, a young Elith with an unusual curiosity for human ways. Kyrix is fascinated by the human concept of individualism, as Elith society operates as a collective with minimal personal expression. Layla begins to share stories of her life on Earth with Kyrix, her struggles with fitting in, her sense of being an outsider, and her fascination with space. Kyrix, in turn, shows her how the Elith view their world and the universe, through technology that allows Layla to experience vivid, shared memories of Elith history. Over time, a mutual trust develops between Layla and Kyrix. He introduces her to the larger Elith Council, and despite the Council's skepticism about their interactions, Layla's bond with Kyrix grows stronger. Together, they start to question the boundaries of their two worlds and whether their species can truly learn from one another. Layla's relationship with the Elith deepens, but soon, conflict arises. The Elith begin conducting experiments on human emotions, using Layla as their primary subject. What starts as gentle curiosity becomes invasive as they explore the extremes of fear, anger, and sorrow. They do not understand the repercussions of such emotions and, in their desire to learn, put Layla in uncomfortable, sometimes distressing, situations. One day, during a particular experiment involving deep sadness, Layla collapses under the weight of emotion. Kyrix rushes to her side, realizing for the first time that humans cannot simply turn off emotions like the Elith can control their thoughts. For Layla, this moment signifies a crack in the Elith's seemingly perfect, rational society. They've failed to understand that emotions, while chaotic, are integral to human existence and identity. Layla decides to confront the Elith Council, expressing her frustration and telling them that their approach is harmful. However, the Council doesn't seem to comprehend the emotional damage they've caused. Their reaction is cold and analytical, viewing emotions as nothing more than variables to be understood. Kyrix, however, is deeply affected by Layla's outburst. He begins to question Elith's desire for emotional suppression and whether their society's pursuit of logic has stripped them of something essential. As Kyrix wrestles with the idea that emotions may not be weaknesses, he starts to experience them in subtle ways. He doesn't fully feel emotions like Layla does, but he develops a deep sense of empathy for her. Meanwhile, Layla struggles to reconcile her place in two worlds. She feels an undeniable connection to the Elith, particularly Kyrix, but also yearns for the emotional understanding of humans. One night, after a particularly challenging day on the Elith ship, Kyrix takes Layla on a journey to one of the Elith's sacred places, a moon orbiting their planet, covered in bioluminescent forests. Here, They engage in a ritual that allows Layla to share her memories more fully. Kyrix experiences fragments of her childhood, her love for her family, and the simple joy of standing under Earth's stars. In that moment, he understands what the Elith Council has missed. Emotions are not something to be studied. They are something to be lived. Kyrix begins to distance himself from the collective mindset of his people, growing closer to Layla in the process. Their bond shifts from one of curiosity to one of mutual dependence, as they help each other navigate the complexities of their respective worlds. Layla starts to teach Kyrix how to express individualism, showing him simple things like the joy of laughter and the comfort of companionship. For the first time, Kyrix begins to experiment with self-expression, a radical concept in Elith society. The Elith Council grows, increasingly concerned about Kyrix's changes and Layla's influence. They begin to view her as a potential threat to the Elith way of life, fearing that emotions could destabilize their rational society. They demand that Layla cease her visits, warning that further interaction could lead to permanent exile from their world. This causes a deep rift between Layla and Kyrix. He is torn between his loyalty to his people and his growing attachment to Layla. At the same time, Layla must make a decision. Stay on Earth and live a life with the warmth of human relationships, or pursue the otherworldly connection she feels with Kyrix and the Elith. She also faces the reality that while Kyrix may begin to feel emotions, he will never fully understand the depth of human feeling. Back on Earth, Layla's friends and family grow concerned as she becomes increasingly withdrawn, consumed by her connection to the Elith. They sense that she is drifting further away from them, both emotionally and mentally. Layla realizes that her relationship with the Elith, while profound, has come at a cost. She is losing touch with her own humanity. As tensions escalate, the Elith Council gives Layla an ultimatum: leave their world forever or submit to a permanent separation from Kyrix. They argue that Kyrix's growing individuality could have disastrous consequences for their species. For them, the logical conclusion is to sever ties completely to protect their way of life. Kyrix, though torn, ultimately decides that his connection with Layla is more important than following the Elith way of life. He chooses to leave the Elith collective, a decision that shocks the council and his peers. However, leaving means Kyrix must live in exile, away from his people and their shared consciousness. Layla is devastated by the weight of her decision. She knows that Kyrix is making an enormous sacrifice, but she also recognizes that Earth will never truly accept him, nor will he fully integrate into human society. They are, quite literally, from two different worlds. Despite this, they choose to stay together. Faced with impossible choices, Layla had to make a decision. She could see that Zyra's methods, while powerful, were dangerous and destructive. But she also knew that the Elithian Council, despite their promises, would never truly allow Kyrix to live freely. They would strip him of his individuality and force him back into the collective, erasing everything they had built together. Summoning all her strength, Layla chose a different path. She refused Taloran's offer and stood beside Kyrix, declaring that their bond, rooted in love and understanding, was stronger than any force the Elithians or Zyra could muster. She called out to Kyrix, reminding him of the journey they had shared, of the lessons they had learned together about the value of emotions, not as tools of power, but as connections between beings. Kyrix, hearing Layla's words, made his decision. He rejected Zyra's offer and instead focused his mind on protecting Layla. Drawing on his own emotional development, Kyrix used his newly learned abilities, not to destroy, but to shield them both from the chaotic forces Zyra had unleashed. His emotions, now honed through his connection with Layla, created a protective barrier that repelled Zyra's powers and neutralized Taloran's attacks. Zyra, realizing she had lost Kyrix to a different path, fled into the night, disappearing into the cosmos with a promise that she would return one day, stronger and more powerful than ever. Taloran, seeing that Kyrix had mastered emotions in a way that did not threaten the Elithian way of life, reluctantly agreed to leave them in peace, for now. Months after the intense confrontation with Zyra and Taloran, life for Layla and Kyrix seemed to settle into a temporary peace. They returned to their quiet home, working together to heal from the emotional and physical turmoil they had endured. But beneath the surface, there was an unspoken tension, a sense that this was only the calm before the storm. One evening, while Kyrix was meditating and Layla was looking through her old research notes, something unexpected happened. The small communication device that Kyrix had kept hidden from the Elithians, a relic from his time among them, began to blink. It had been dormant for years, and the Elithian technology should have been deactivated. But now, it was receiving a signal. Kyrix, confused and wary, activated the device. The message that came through was garbled and faint, but it was unmistakably from an Elithian ship. However, this time it wasn't from the Council or any official emissary. It was a distress signal. A ship, far from the Elithian homeworld, was broadcasting a message of urgency. "We are under attack. Hostile force unlike any we have seen. Assistance needed immediately. Our shields are failing." The message cut off abruptly, leaving an eerie silence. Layla, looking at Kyrix with concern, knew what was coming. Kyrix explained that the Elithians, despite their advanced technology, had never encountered such a threat. Their peaceful ways had made them vulnerable to an unknown danger, one that seemed far more hostile than anything they had experienced before. The message was clear. Something new was happening in the universe, and it threatened not only the Elithians but possibly all intelligent life. Layla and Kyrix couldn't ignore it. But the bigger question was, what could they do? Before they could even process the distress signal, another presence made itself known. One night, as they were preparing to investigate the source of the signal, a figure appeared at their doorstep, Zyra. But something was different this time. She wasn't the powerful, emotion-fueled rogue Elithian they had last seen. She was injured, visibly weakened, her once dark glowing skin now dull. Her eyes, once blazing with ambition and raw emotional energy, now held a mixture of fear and desperation. Zyra revealed that after her departure, she had traveled far beyond the known Elithian space in search of new sources of emotional power. In doing so, she had inadvertently encountered a force unlike anything she had anticipated. An ancient alien race known as the Kyrix had been lying dormant for millennia. They were a species entirely devoted to consuming and absorbing other civilizations' life forces and emotional energy. Their strength grew by devouring the emotions of other beings, and they had now set their sights on the Elithians as their next prey. Zyra's arrogance had brought her into direct conflict with the Kyrix, and they had nearly destroyed her. Worse, they had followed her back to Elithian space, which explained the distress signal Kyrix had received. Zyra, with her vast knowledge of emotions, was now one of the few Elithians capable of understanding the threat posed by the Kyrix, but she was too weak to fight them alone. Reluctantly, she turned to Kyrix and Layla for help. She offered them an alliance. Together, they could combine their knowledge of emotions, logic, and human adaptability to confront this new danger. If they failed, the Kyrix would not stop with the Elithians. They would continue to spread across the galaxy, consuming entire worlds. Layla, ever the pragmatist, knew that this was a dangerous proposition. Zyra was untrustworthy, and her thirst for power had nearly destroyed them before. But Kyrix, sensing the gravity of the situation, believed they had no choice. The Kyrix were a threat that no one species could face alone. The trio set off on a journey to confront the Kyrix at the source, an ancient, long-forgotten world deep within uncharted space. Zyra, now somewhat recovered, guided them, using her knowledge of the ancient text she had uncovered. She explained that the Kyrix were not just conquerors. They were manipulators of emotions on a fundamental level. They could twist the feelings of entire populations, using fear, despair, and rage to weaken and control their victims before finally consuming them. As they traveled deeper into Kyrix space, the tension between the three grew. Zyra's presence was a constant reminder of the danger they were facing, but also of the lingering distrust between her and Layla. Kyrix found himself caught in the middle, still grappling with his own evolving understanding of emotions. He had come far in mastering his feelings, But now, in the face of the Kyrix, he realized that emotions could be even more volatile and dangerous than he had imagined. When they finally arrived on the Kyrix homeworld, they were met with a sight beyond their worst nightmares. The planet itself was a desolate wasteland, covered in the ruins of civilizations long consumed by the Kyrix. Ghostly echoes of past emotions, fear, anger, sorrow, hung in the air like a heavy fog. The Kyrix, it seemed, didn't just feed on emotions. They left a scar on the very fabric of reality itself. But as they ventured deeper into the heart of the Kyrix stronghold, they discovered something even more horrifying. The Kyrix were not a single species, but a collective of countless minds, absorbed over eons, bound together by their shared hunger for emotional energy. The more they consumed, the stronger and more unified they became. Life for Layla and Kyrix had settled into a quiet routine. While the challenges of their relationship were ongoing, they had come to understand and support each other's differences. One evening, as they sat outside their secluded cabin, watching the stars, a strange light flickered in the distance. At first, they thought it might be a satellite or a shooting star, but the light began to grow brighter, its movement more deliberate. Suddenly, a ship descended silently from the sky. It was Elithian in design, but smaller than Kyrix's memories of their ships. Layla felt her heart race. Kyrix stood, his body tense, sensing something wasn't right. From the ship emerged an Elithian female, unlike any Kyrix had seen before. Her skin glowed a darker hue, and there was a strange energy about her, one that radiated power. She introduced herself as Zyra, a rogue Elithian who had abandoned the collective years ago, much like Kyrix. However, unlike Kyrix, she had not done so for love. Zyra had left to explore emotions in their rawest form, believing them to be the key to unlocking even greater power. Zyra had heard of Kyrix's exile and his relationship with a human, and she had come with a warning. The Elithian Council had sent an emissary to Earth, tasked with retrieving Kyrix by any means necessary. They had realized that Kyrix's departure and his developing emotional abilities were more dangerous than they had originally thought. The Council feared that emotions, once unleashed in an Elithian mind, could destabilize their entire species. And now, they were coming to erase not just Kyrix, but Layla as well, to prevent any knowledge of their connection from spreading. But Zyra's warning came with a price. She offered Kyrix a choice. Join her in her pursuit of emotional mastery, and together, they could reshape the Elithian future. Zyra had been training herself to use emotions as a weapon, harnessing their power to bend reality itself. She believed that emotions weren't a weakness, but the next stage in Elithian evolution. If Kyrix joined her, they could overthrow the Council, return to the Elithian homeworld, and create a new society built on emotional strength. Kyrix was torn. For years, he had been struggling to understand emotions, balancing his Elithian logic with the human feelings Layla had introduced him to. Now, Zyra was offering him a way to fully embrace those emotions and tap into powers he never knew existed. The allure was strong. He could finally be more than an exile, more than a curiosity. He could be powerful, respected, and feared. But at what cost? Layla's presence grounded him. She had shown him the beauty of emotion, not as a tool or a weapon, but as something to cherish, something that made life richer. He couldn't imagine using feelings in the destructive ways Zyra was proposing. Layla, watching the interaction unfold, sensed Kyrix's inner turmoil. She could see the temptation in his eyes, the pull of a future that offered him a place of belonging and power. But she also saw the man she had come to love, the one who valued kindness, empathy, and connection over raw ambition. Before Kyrix could respond, Zyra looked directly at Layla and made her own offer. She told Layla that she, too, could harness this power. Zyra had been studying humans from afar, and she knew that their emotions, unlike those of the Elithians, were wild and unpredictable. Layla had the potential to become even more powerful than Kyrix if she learned to control her emotions in the way Zyra had. Together, the three of them could reshape not just Elith, but the universe itself. Zyra promised that if they joined forces, They could bring down the Elithian Council and create a new order where emotions reign supreme. As the conversation unfolded, the night sky filled with more lights. The Elithian emissary had arrived. A large ship hovered above the forest, casting long shadows across the ground. Unlike Zyra's ship, this one was unmistakably Elithian, with sleek designs and a faint hum that made the ground tremble. A group of Elithians descended, led by an elder named Taloran, a high-ranking member of the council. Taloran, seeing Zyra, immediately recognized her and addressed her coldly, calling her a rogue element and accusing her of corrupting Kyrix. He announced that the council had given him full authority to bring Kyrix back, by force if necessary, and to neutralize any threat to Elithian society, including Layla. However, before he could act, Zyra intervened. She unleashed her powers, drawing on the emotions of fear and anger, and the ground around them began to crack and warp as reality itself shifted. A battle erupted. Zyra, using her emotion-fueled powers, fought against Taloran and the other Lithians. Layla, caught in the middle, felt an overwhelming surge of energy as Zyra's abilities threatened to destabilize the area. Kyrix, conflicted, hesitated. Should he use his newly learned emotional control to help Zyra, or should he resist? Amid the chaos, Taloran turned to Layla. He revealed that while the council feared emotions, they also respected their power. He offered her a deal. If she surrendered Kyrix to them, they would let her live and even allow her to return to a normal life. He warned her that Zyra's path would lead only to destruction and that she was being manipulated by her lust for power. Layla's emotional power surged, breaking through Zyra's hold. She realized that while Zyra had sought to manipulate emotions for her own gain, Layla's strength lay in her ability to feel them fully, without fear. It was this purity of emotion, uncontrolled, unfiltered, that the Kyrix had never encountered before. As Layla unleashed her emotions, the very fabric of the Kyrix collective began to unravel. The Kyrix, having fed on fear and pain for so long, were ill-prepared to face the overwhelming power of positive emotions like love, hope, and compassion. Layla's connection to Kyrix, forged through their trials together, amplified this power. The Kyrix, weakened and unable to maintain their cohesion, began to fracture. Zyra, realizing too late that she had underestimated Layla, tried to regain control, but it was no use. The Kyrix, now collapsing in on themselves, turned on Zyra, seeking to consume her as a last-ditch effort to survive. In a final moment of desperation, Zyra was absorbed into the Kyrix collective, her quest for power ending in her becoming just another mind in the endless void of consumed souls. With Zyra gone and the Kyrix collective shattered, the threat to the galaxy was finally over. Layla, exhausted but triumphant, helped Kyrix to his feet. Together, they had faced the ultimate test, not just of their love, but of their strength as individuals and as a team. The journey back to Earth was quiet, filled with reflection. Layla had come to understand the true power of emotions, not as weapons, but as sources of connection and resilience. Kyrix, having seen the full spectrum of emotions, from the destructive power of the Kyrix to the healing power of love, knew that their bond had grown even stronger. They had faced an unimaginable threat and emerged victorious, but they also knew that their journey wasn't over. There were still dangers out there, lurking in the shadows of the galaxy, and new challenges would undoubtedly arise. But now, they were ready. Together, they had not only survived but thrived, their love and connection standing as a beacon of hope in a universe filled with uncertainty.